I want to pursue the $100 million as well. Can you tell me, do you expect...
a piece of it, or?
Sorry? I can make some recommendations about where it should be spent, but anyway. Do you expect that to be new money, or are you being asked to find that from your existing budget?
Senator, this is a funding allocation that was announced as part of the government's election commitments, and I don't have anything further to add to that.
How many... You've already told me that the number of staff have been reduced in border security, border compliance, I beg your pardon. How much are you being asked to find in your portfolio for during the budget process?
So, Senator, I'm not in a position to be able to answer questions about the current budget process. I'm simply not able to answer those questions.
You're not able to tell me that this is, in fact, new money, not money that's being found in your portfolio?
The government's election commitment was that it was an allocation of $100 million as part of the government, and the government, as the then opposition, had a full table setting out its the financial implications of its commitments.
Thank you. Can I go back to the food community grants? You said that there was 364 applications.
That's correct.
What was the value, the total value of those applications?
I'll take that on notice, Senator. I actually don't have that number with me. I can get it for you and provide it on notice.
If you could, that'd be appreciated. Thank you. In terms of the process, that was part of the allocation when the food plan was announced.
That's correct.
We talked about the food plan previously, and in previous estimates it was a bit unclear. Does that mean any work now related to the food plan has completely been abandoned?
No.
Okay,
so there are some initiatives which are still continuing.
Okay, which are they?
For example, the food brand, the global food strategy for Australian food brand is continuing. For example, food in curriculum. Sorry, the food in the curriculum.
Yep.
Is continuing. So some of the strategic market research to help small commodities gain market access into neighbouring countries.
Thank you. How much funding now, therefore, has been, if the food grants have been discontinued, how much money is now being allocated to those particular elements of the food plan?
So in terms of those particular projects that I just mentioned.
Well, those projects and anything else that's still being continued as part of the food plan.
So the government, the previous government announced some $37 million, and in the portfolio additional estimate statements we talk about just over 4.3 or $4.4 million being returned.
Can I ask a dumb question? Can you summarise the food plan?
Summarise the food plan.
Well, what we're talking about here.
So the food plan, the National Food Plan, looked at the food system and developed a number of initiatives to actually look at how the food system may grow in coming years.
You're talking bureaucratic, like something I can touch and feel.
So the idea was to say, look, if Australia wants to continue to export food, how do we have to do it? Who are our consumers likely to be, and how do you put that product in front of them? And so
give me an example of what
for example, one of the things we're looking at is if there's a growing demand for food in our neighbours in Asia, well, what is it the Asian consumers actually want? What we produce may be not actually necessarily what they want in the future. So we need to marry our production systems with growing demand.
Can you get a briefing on this later so I can ask some more questions? In terms of the overall coordination, so those are the programs that are continuing. What's the status of the actual plan? Is it something the government is still implementing, or is it just those programs that the government's implementing?
It's those programs that the government's implementing in terms of the broader food plan itself. The government's in the process with the agriculture white paper, and that's setting the long-term policy parameters for the government.
So we ignore the food plan and just look at those particular programs. Is that
That's
correct interpretation?
Senator, effectively the food plan will be considered together as part of the white paper process. The government's actually got, as I indicated earlier, a quite comprehensive white paper process, and that will be setting out the government's agenda for the future.
Understand that, but the point I'm trying to get to is whether the food plan has any status anymore, and it doesn't, if I understand what I was just told correctly.
Mr. Coker?
That's correct. The food plan has no doubt. But the Secretary is correct. The research, analysis and the input that all went into the food plan will be feeding into the agricultural white paper process.
Okay,
It's
thank
not a
you.
plan to be seen to be doing something when you're doing nothing.
Well, it's not a plan anymore. In terms of the programs that were continued, what was the process of the decision-making process to keep those particular components and get rid of or end the food community grants?
Senator, I think that's again sort of traversing into the territory of policy advice. We addressed this earlier. We'd provided advice in relation to these matters, but we're not really in a position to go any further today.
I'm not asking for policy advice. I'm asking for the process that was undertaken. Why were these projects chosen? Were they already underway? Were there seen to be more priority given to those, or more important?
I think I appreciate the question you're asking is around process, and we can answer questions around process. We've taken on notice the precise dates at which advice had been provided. I gave an indication of the general process that was undertaken at the end of last year. Probably not in a position to provide you with much more information at the moment, but we can certainly take details on notice.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to move on.
Yeah.